Have you ever seen an opportunity and thought, that's too good to be true? I looked through the fine print to learn more about it, waiting with bated breath to see if you're correct. I'm sure you've heard this advice before, yet here I am now. When something appears too wonderful to be true, it is. Here I am now, 9 more hours sitting at this desk watching security feeds, and then I get to go home and wonder why I believed that this overpay for an easy security position didn't come with a catch, why I didn't notice all the red flags, why I even saw the offer online and got in here, and why I genuinely believed I'd be lucky to have the opportunity to regret my decision after my shift. Let us go back to earlier today. I was moving between surfing Reddit and flipping through local job postings when a refresh of the job listings revealed something new that piqued my interest, a simple security role. The job description basically consisted of securing the doors at night, monitoring cameras, and notifying the corporation if anything terrible happened. The description stated that they would pay $37 per hour. I was instantly skeptical of the high pay for such a basic position, especially since the company had almost no information about itself on the internet, only images of the founders and the outside of their buildings, but no mention of what they do. However, I had the prerequisites from a class I attended a year ago, and the prospect of walking away with $300 for a night's work seemed appealing, even if it may have been a fraud. I felt it couldn't hurt to submit a CV and see what happened. I received a call from a private number less than an hour after submitting my application, and the conversation I had with the person on the other end indicated that they had no prior experience hiring people. Their voice appeared stressed out and worried, a couple more red flags, but I was still in the it could be legit, I haven't lost anything mindset. I'll attempt to reproduce the phone conversation here. Christopher? Inquired the voice on the other end. Yes, I responded. Speaking. This is, I work for. I'm Daniel Edwards, head of security. Head of HR, I mean. I'm the former head of security. I'm calling because you submitted your application to us, Daniel interrupted. I waited impatiently for him to continue, but when the stillness lasted too long, I realized he had finished speaking. What about my application? Oh, we'd like you to come in for an interview. Your credentials looked, well, they looked good, yeah. Would you be able to stop by in about 2 hours? I was startled. It appeared to me that either it was a fraud, or they needed the post filled quickly, perhaps even tonight. If it was the latter, I'm confident I could negotiate a higher salary. So I made a decision there. I looked up the address on Google Street View to see if there was any additional information available before going there. If something seemed odd, I wouldn't show up for the interview. Sure thing. Thank you, Daniel. He disconnected before I could finish responding. Fast forward 2 hours. I was approaching a fenced-off site in my city's industrial zone. 2 buildings had few labels and emblems, but they appeared to be in good condition and allegedly still belonged to the company I was coming to inspect. I drove my 2001 Honda Civic through the gate into the parking lot. Something felt slightly odd right away, but I didn't notice it till later. The parking lot was empty save for 1 car. I stepped outside and entered the larger structure. The door, which faced straight onto the parking lot, was unlocked, and the receptionist desk was empty. I recall noticing dust on the blades of the fan. The job description didn't provide an email address, and Daniel called me from a private number. Unsure what to do, I waited in the little lobby for a few minutes, taking in my surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the front wall, leading to the glass door. A metal shutter system was mounted on the outer wall above the glass, with a control panel on the long side. The receptionist's desk was against the wall opposite the entryway. On either side of the room, there are 8 chairs and 2 small coffee tables stocked with old magazines. To the left, a short hallway stretched past a single door on either side and ended at a heavy, unpainted metal external door with dents of varied sizes and shapes. For some strange reason, the exterior door made me apprehensive. The hall had 3 doors and a single small window with wire mesh inside, which was disguised by black painted fabric on the interior. To the right, another hall. How long I can't remember. I normally pay close attention to detail. Were there 4 doors on either side? No 216? Maybe I don't even know how long it was. I didn't check at the end of the right hallway. A long hallway behind the receptionist desk ended in a T intersection. The first door on the left was a brown painted metal door with a little sign that read Security Office. Joshua hurried in through the front entrance after a few minutes of waiting. Oh, I apologize for keeping you waiting. My name is Joshua Collins, and I'm the head of human resources, he said hastily, appearing panicked and frightened. As he shook my hand, He made just brief eye contact with me. I could feel his palms sweating. Christopher Newman? I paused for a second, hit by a rush of doubt, and decided to put him to the test, to see whether he could tell a straight narrative. I spoke to a man named Daniel Edwards on the phone earlier. I thought that he said he was the head of HR, I told him. Joshua ignored me and proceeded. Mr. Newman, my company needs a new security guard fast. The last one quit this morning, and we can't afford to go a night without somebody watching the property. We've tried to get you here as soon as possible because you'll need to be ready to work by sunset, so we'll skip the usual process. If you're able to start right now, then you can consider yourself hired. Your salary is $37 an hour and non-negotiable. Just sign this NDA and... I didn't appreciate how forceful he was, but it proved that I was correct. They were looking for a quick, probably temporary employment, and I wasn't going to turn down that kind of pay. I flipped through the NDA. It was long, so I skimmed most of it, but I know how these contracts work. Don't reveal company secrets, yada yada, and signed it. Follow me to the security office, Joshua stated. The orientation was brief and straightforward. Here's your keychain. This one opens the door to the security office, this one opens most of the other offices, and this one controls the shutter on the front windows. Here's your mag light. You can use it as a baton in a pinch, but you better lock yourself in the office and call us if you see anything suspicious. All you have to do is sit in that office and watch the camera feeds. You don't need to patrol because you don't have a partner to watch the feeds while you're away. What's the binder for? I inquired, pointing to a white binder on my desk with the company logo. Oh, read that during your shift, Joshua responded, visibly uncomfortable at the mention of the binder. He avoided my look while stammering out his response. He didn't wait to see whether I had any additional questions before hurrying out, getting into the only car in the parking lot other than mine, and speeding away. I immediately took my security guard duty. I stepped outside, locked the gate, closed the metal shutter over the front glass, locked the front door, and locked myself inside the security office. I opened the binder. That binder inspired me to write it down. When I opened it, I expected a logbook, a written summary of business policy governing various circumstances I might find after hours, specific regulations for dealing with burglars and vandals, that sort of thing. Instead, there was only one page, and what was on that page convinced me that this position was, in fact, too good to be true, which is why I'm so afraid right now. Inside the binder, 10 company rules that security personnel must follow to ensure their safety and well-being. The long hallway is off limits. If you cross the threshold from the lobby, immediately turn around and walk back. Do not run, and do not stare at the hallway for lengthy durations. If a security camera shows the long hallway, turn it off immediately. Please do not open the door at the end of the short hallway. Building 2 is off limits and may only be viewed through camera feeds. If you need to go outside, only use the front door. The coffee machine will start automatically at 2:17 a.m. Before this happens, make sure a cup is placed beneath it. Once the liquid has been dispensed into the cup, place it outside the security office door, unlock it, and do not open it again until 2:37 a.m. Please do not leave the security office between 4:01 and 4:02 a.m. If you hear a female voice coming from an unclear location on the left side of the short hallway, do not enter the room unless the voice urges you to do so. Don't glance at her face. If you hear a male voice after unlocking the door, return to the security office right away. If you feel you are in immediate danger, dial this number from the security office. Do not contact emergency services before sunrise. Do not attempt to exit the building before sunrise. I have 9 hours left in my shift. I'd rather leave here broke than stay for the remainder of the night, but the instructions stated that I should stay until the morning. Wish me luck. Update 2:15 a.m. So far, it's been relatively uneventful, and I hope I don't jinx it by saying so. I've just stayed in the office and spent my time viewing security camera feeds and perusing Reddit to soothe my worries. It's devil coffee time in 2 minutes. The cup is already in place, and I'm hoping everything goes smoothly. Update 2:33 a.m. The devil coffee has vanished after being left outside the door. I heard something knocking and scratching on the door while I was instructed to keep it closed, but I couldn't see it on the cameras. The one watching the office monitors began to display the lengthy hallway, and I had to switch it off. There is a persistent shadow in the corner of the room that does not go away even when I beam my flashlight directly on it. The instructions said nothing about a shadow, so I'm just going to ignore it, checking every now and then to see if it changes size or moves. I still haven't heard the woman's voice, and I swear I saw a humanoid figure on the building 2 cameras a few times, but I can't detect it when I go through the feeds more attentively. I no longer have any doubt that this place is haunted. Update 3:42 a.m. I was feeling really spooked, so I didn't publish this right away, but here's what happened. I'll go into more detail when I'm less anxious. At 3:45, I heard a woman's voice. I was planning to ignore it till 4:02, but it became increasingly louder. At 4 o'clock, she let me in, but as soon as I sat down, I heard a masculine voice and fled back to the office. I'll write about what happened at 4:01 a.m. later. I'm still very shaken by it. I'll just say that I was grateful for the reinforced metal door in the office, and then I deeply regretted taking this position. I suppose I'll just pick up where I left off at 3:45 a.m. The female voice began to mumble in a language I didn't understand. It could have been gibberish for all I knew, starting from a place to my left and seemingly changing direction as it spoke. I planned to stay in the workplace until 4:02 a.m. to unlock the door, but what began as a whisper became increasingly louder and more painful. The voice was all I could hear. It came at me from all sides and appeared to shout right into my consciousness. I raced out of the office, past the dust-covered receptionist desk, and into the short corridor, fumbling with my keys to unlock the door after barely 2 minutes of her speaking. The shrieking stopped the moment I opened it. The interior of the room is foggy in my memory, but I do recall dust motes in the air and a chair on either side lighted in the middle of the room, so black that I couldn't see anything else. A woman sat on the far side of the room, motioning for me to enter and sit across from her. Walking into the darkness was strange. My footsteps made no noise, and my senses were muffled. I'd scarcely seated down when a male voice let out a distress yell. I rushed back to the office, not looking back. I arrived back at exactly 4:01 a.m. I could not have spent more than 20 seconds in that room. I mentioned in my previous post what occurred between 4:01 and 4:02 a.m. This definitely shocked me up. I agreed to write it on here. Perhaps putting it on paper will help me understand it. At 4:01 a.m., I heard a blood-curdling, inhuman scream from the lobby via the video stream. I'm not sure what I saw. I know it was inhuman, but I can't remember its shape. Dark. A little larger than a person. Seeing it then and recalling it again instills in me a terrible fear, so strong that I doubt I'll ever sleep again. After witnessing it, that object printed into the lobby from the lengthy hallway. It dashed to the external door at the end of the small corridor. It beat at it for a few seconds with limbs I never saw or heard, but I was convinced it could kill me in an instant. It gave up on the door and started dashing back and forth in the corridor outside the security office. All I could do was watch it run from left to right on the cameras, listening to that horrific scream and the regular banging of its bare feet on the poor linoleum floors. As I watched it sprint, it looked at the camera. Huh? It had no eyes, and I couldn't see the rest of its face. All I know is that it had stopped on it, and I was transfixed by a never-ending stare till even its screaming faded into the background. I felt it staring at me, burning with a strange alien emotion mingled with curiosity that quickly turned into anger. As I stared at it, I realized that this being despised me more than anything I had ever known could. It intended to murder me. It would pursue me endlessly, through fire and hell. It would not stop until I died at its hands. I would never be free of its unrelenting hatred. It turned away from the camera and raced for the office door. I realized it had never stopped shrieking as it began to beat on the scratched, painted metal. I'm not sure how many arms it had. It may have been 2 or 9. It seemed to change every time it hit the door. Its screams, as weird and human as they were, seemed to become frustrated. It really desired to get in, to rip me apart, and this door was preventing it from achieving its ultimate goal. This piece of metal, this invention of man, was preventing it from achieving the only goal it cared about. The monster's screams reached a horrific crescendo as the door rattled more and more. I was convinced that it was about to fail beneath the strain, and just as I was prepared to accept that I was going to die here, the cacophony of screaming and banging stopped abruptly. I checked the time, 4:02 a.m. I checked the cameras and decided to try my luck with the one I had turned off earlier because it showed the lengthy hallway. There was no evidence of the monster, and the door was strangely unharmed. As soon as I was certain that the screaming creature had vanished, I opened the binder and called the emergency number from the office phone. It rang for a long time before anyone picked up. Daniel Edwards. Let me guess, it's a screamer. Aha. How did you know? He comes out at the same time every night. Stays for exactly 1 minute. Please, please only copper stuff. That's not a knot at the binder, is it? Gone now? And I thought that thing was staring into me. What happened to the last guy that looked it in the eye? Am I safe? He hung up the phone without saying another word. I cast an uneasy glance at the shadow in the corner, its foreboding presence softened by the fact that it had not moved. I accepted that my next potty break would be at the nearest shop that served coffee. The next time I would leave the room was at the end of my shift. The remainder of the night was hectic. The black figure in Building 2 would emerge on feeds, in the corner of my view, only to vanish as soon as I tried to look closer. Several times, I discovered cameras showing sections of Building 2 that weren't previously visible. An office door down the hall opened and closed on its own at random intervals, making me jump each time. Every odd-numbered camera displayed the long hallway, and I had to quickly switch them off. I swear a handful of them revealed an indistinct humanoid face in the distance. As the night drew to a conclusion, I realized that the clock on my phone was approximately 16 minutes behind that on the wall. I waited until the slower of the two signaled it was time to leave. I didn't want to chance leaving early and being caught by whoever was in charge of the regulations. It would remain here till morning. I'll just create a single time-stamped diary of what happened in the last few hours of my shift because it's easier to follow. 6:30 a.m. Camera 4 captured a man with my build and hair color in the lobby. He turned to look at it. He had my face, but something felt odd. Then he disappeared. 6:57 a.m. The camera in the small hallway captured the hefty metal door shaking for nearly 20 seconds. 7:13 a.m. The chair at the receptionist's desk tumbled over. 7:15 a.m. The receptionist's chair was standing up, and the dust covering on it remained intact. 7:30 a.m. Camera 16 captured a passage in Building 2 that, based on my understanding of the architecture, would have been outside the building's footprint. 7:50 a.m. I spotted symbols, possibly characters from a foreign language, drawn in dust on the receptionist's computer screen, an old CRT display with a beige plastic cover. 8 a.m. The symbols are gone. The shadow in the corner of my room faded, and sunlight began to filter through the shutter's edges. My shift finished. You can be sure I wanted to get out of there as soon as I could. As I proceeded from the office to the door, something in the long hallway caught my attention out of the corner of my eye. Despite my best efforts to avoid looking, I was forced to turn my head. A face could be seen in the corridor, a long way away, maybe 100 yards, maybe a few steps. Distance doesn't function right there. It had no eyes, only depressions in its flesh where its eyes should have been, and it grinned at me with human teeth. It took a lot of willpower, but I was able to drag my sight away from it, open the shutter and front door, lock the gate, and drive away so quickly that if there were cops nearby, I would have had my license revoked right immediately. Now, at home across the city, I threw the keys to the ground in front of the door. As I rushed away, I felt that thing's gaze burn into the back of my head. It became less strong as I got further away, but I could still feel it watching me. I haven't slept or eaten. I attempted to contact the company, but I couldn't locate any information about them online. Their website is no longer available, and Google searches yield no results. On Google Maps, no company is shown at their address, and there is no history of them on the job listing site. Even the phone number in the binder sends me an automated message indicating that it is no longer in service. A check arrived in the mail earlier today, but there was no return address, and the name on the check, Joshua Collins, was insufficient to proceed. The payment came with the following message: "Here's the night's pay. I have a feeling you won't be back for another shift. Any residual effects you experience should disappear over the coming days. Thank you for working for a subsidiary of Extra Normal Containment Solutions." Joshua Collins is the project leader. I'm not sure what I got myself into, I'm just hoping I don't get caught up in any of this Extra Normal Containment Solutions nonsense. It sounds eerily similar to the real-life equivalent of the SCP Foundation, and if they're anything like each other, I'd rather keep away. I am certain that I will ignore red flags in the hiring process again. I will never accept a questionable employment offer in my life. It's totally ingrained in my head now. If anything appears too good to be true, it is.